Billy's got the sheriff's left hand in his mouth. He's got it by the fatty part on the outside of his hand, below the pinky. Sheriff had gotten his hand up, otherwise Billy might have gotten his neck straight away. Jesus H. Christ, you guys, fuck. Smokey is yelling as he tries to get Billy off the sheriff by hitting his head with his hand. Jack and Angeli come rushing over. Holy Christ! Angeli shouts. Him and Jack also start hitting Billy. He ain't dead? Jack is yelling. Billy lets go of the sheriff at this point and Sheriff staggers away from the area holding his hand. The other three guys are standing there looking at Billy in shock. His chin and lower jaw are soaked and dripping in red blood, his skin has absolutely no color whatsoever, and the look in his eyes is so wild it's like the 1,000-yard stare from the devil himself. Billy rushed at the other three guys at this point with a raspy growl and they scatter in different directions. Don't let him bite you. Smokey yells. It almost sounds kind of funny. Billy is running after anything that moves and Smokey, Jack, and Angeli are running all over the camp to avoid him. Each guy lets out a screech whenever they see Billy is locked onto them. The horses don't like it either. Amid all the commotion they're rearing up and bucking, and lucky for them by the time Billy notices them and starts going after them they've broken off the horse rail and are on their way down the trail. The guys gather by the fire to catch their breath when Billy turns around and starts running back at them. There's a sudden boom that most likely caused all three men to crap their pants. Billy stops. Boom, 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 boom. The last one puts Billy on his back. Sheriff comes walking out of the shadows with his gun drawn in front of him. Sheriff reloads as the other guys got their own guns out of their sleeping bags. He dead? Jack asks. Of course he's dead, Angeli returns. Yeah, well we thought that before, Jack reiterates. Just as everyone calms down, Billy starts to move again. This is impossible. Smokey said as Billy stands up. Hit him again, Sheriff hollers. They all blast him and Billy goes down again. Sheriff doesn't empty this time though. He walks over to Billy and just stands over him for a few seconds. Sure enough, Billy sits up again and Sheriff blows his head off. Everybody is quiet for what feels like a year. That did it, Smokey says finally. They all gather around Billy's body. Doc isn't gonna believe this, Jack says. He'll have to, Sheriff says. For men telling him the same story, and once he gets a look at that body there shouldn't be any doubt. If anything, the autopsy will show him something made Billy sick. Smokey is looking grim once he realizes something. He starts. I'm not saying we need to shoot anybody, but... I already thought of that, Sheriff says. He was standing over the fire now, running his hand over it and wincing every few passes. He was cauterizing his bite, that's pretty hardcore. I'm bit. That sick turtle bit Billy and he turned into some kind of demon, now Billy bit me. What do we do? Angeli asks. The weather hasn't changed, still way too dark to risk all our lives trying to get me to the dock tonight, Sheriff says. So here's what we're going to do. He bends down and picks up some rope out of his gear. Smokey, you tie some pretty mean knots. Tie me to that tree there, and if I end up like Billy my growling and rasping should wake you all up and I won't be able to bite anybody. I don't think I'll be able to sleep, Smokey says. You have to get some, Sheriff says. First light we have to be gone. So the guys bag Billy up again in his sleeping bag and pull him away from the camp. Angeli lets out a long sigh. We're gonna have to drag his ass all the way back home. That's why we have to leave as soon as the sun starts rising, Sheriff says as he sits down next to his tree. It was a smaller tree, small enough to wrap the rope around Sheriff's torso and around the tree trunk a couple times and knot it off. Smokey asks if it's too tight and Sheriff says it's just tight enough. If things go to shit, Sheriff doesn't want himself to be able to wiggle free. Everybody says their goodnights and try to fall asleep. It's hard to say if anyone actually got much sleep, but Smokey is up first. He jolts awake nervously and finds the sun is on its way up. The clouds have cleared out so he wakes everybody else up. They all kind of panic as they look over at the sheriff. He's sitting there, still tied up, with his head slumped down on his chest. He dead? Jack asks. Sheriff raises his head and looks at the guys. I ain't dead yet. How do you feel? Smokey asks him. My hand hurts like hell, Sheriff returns. It's been hours, Anjali says. By this time Billy was looking like hell. You still have color. Maybe it didn't transfer from Billy, Jack offers. Sheriff tells them they don't have time for them to figure it out now, that's the doc's job. So they gather their crap up and head down the trail, dragging Billy behind them tied up in his sleeping bag. They have a stroke of luck here, something they sorely need. Dragging Billy downhill made it easier, but when they get down the trail they find Sheriff's horse just hanging out a couple 100 feet out into the prairie, drinking from a small ditch. He whistles, it comes running, and they strap Billy over him. They head for home as fast as they can and get there in late afternoon.